Hello, I'm Chris Beecham, managing editor of Gold Derby, here with Jim Gaffigan. We're going to talk about Dark Pale, which was his most recent comedy special for Amazon Prime. But Jim, I first wanted to congratulate you on all your award success over the years. 7 Grammy nominations. What's your take on the whole awards game?
It's really interesting because I would say that everyone in there's the business side of it, which is kind of complicated because it adds to some of your leverage in that's the yucky thing about fame, is that anyone who's in the entertainment industry, you're like, I don't want any more of superficial attention. You want acknowledgments, which is what's so great about being nominated or acknowledged by your peer group or other creative people. That's what's so exciting. But also, it does provide leverage because I think the entertainment industry is really, I mean, there is this mythology about discovering someone in a soda shop, but the reality is people are, I think, relatively risk averse. So when it comes to acting, the value of a nomination for acting is that a producer or a writer or showrunner or director, they don't, there's a stamp of approval. You know what I mean? Like, I just know from my experience, I performed on David Letterman, and it kind of really catapulted my career. Not that he offered me a development deal, but also it was kind of the thumbs up from someone who was a respected peer kind of alleviated any concern, because I think in the entertainment industry, people, they want to succeed. They want their movie to work. They want to hire people that are not crazy. You know what I mean? And so, an acknowledgement from a peer group or an acknowledgement from anyone in the entertainment industry can change your life. So, having those Grammy nominations, it's also reassuring. I'm kind of a workhorse, and it's not why I do it. I mean, I love stand up and I love touring, but it is nice to get that acknowledgement, which sounds corny and it sounds insincere. And when I was growing up and I would see people say it's just nice to be acknowledged, I didn't buy it, but it really is. It provides that kind of stimulation because this business is brutal.
Well, your category every year at the Grammys, Best Comedy Album. I mean, it's full of people you admire, I admire, and probably listened to growing up, from Bob
Yeah.
Newhart to Richard Pryor to Steve Martin to Lily Tomlin to Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, it's an amazing group to be nominated with in that world, but to win among those people. Were there particular comedy albums you remember growing up?
Oh gosh. I mean, I remember listening to Bill Cosby, which of course, even bringing that up is loaded now, but and I remember listening to Carlin. I'm old enough, you and I were, as we discussed, we're kind of the same age, but there was something very unique, and that's why I think the Grammy is so special, is because some of my first memories of stand-up are just sitting and imagining what George Carlin was doing while I heard him do these bits on an album, or imagining what it was like to be in the room to hear Robert Klein, but Newhart. And then some of it is just so I mean, so like the mythology around the Grammy is really cool. And it's just the nomination is, I can go, that provides me enough energy for at least 3 months, and then I'm back to depressed.
Well, let's talk about Dark Pale, which I mentioned earlier, your special from July. Going to be eligible for this new Golden Globe category for stand-up comedy, which is amazing that they're going to have that on the Globes. But your Grammy voting just started. You're going to be eligible for an eighth Grammy nomination, Writers Guild, Directors Guild, all those sorts of things. What does it take? How long does it take you to put together that new hour?
It can vary. I've been doing, it's all self-assignment. Everything in the entertainment industry is self-assignment. All creativity is self-assignment. But for me, there is a certain amount of I set a time, like I'll get to a certain point and then I'll set an end point. So I think it was like a year, but like for me, it was the more important task was to evolve. Like what I love about stand up is I feel like I'm getting better at it, but also I feel like I'm evolving in that and going back to the self assignment, it's I wanted to show the reason it's called Dark Pale is because I wanted to be a little bit darker, a little bit more nihilistic. I think that we as a society, the past couple of years, the pandemic, the political discourse has really gotten to a point where there is some cynicism that has maybe floated in, and I think that comedy and the comedy appetite kind of changes with that, and so there is maybe a darker side of me than when I would be talking about cake, and so it's inserting that. But I like to think that stand up is some of it is when people come to shows, they really, they're paying, but they're giving you their time. But also, if they've been before, they don't want to see a rehash. They want to see something that evolves. Like some of our, the friends that you love hanging out with, it's not the exact same conversation. There's changes, and also you might disagree with a friend, but you still love that friend. And so some of it is the conversation that I have with the people that come to my shows or that watch my specials. Hopefully that's evolving, and I'm challenging myself, but I'm also challenging them, and I think it's pretty interesting because you're not going to please everyone, but like there is something about I'm a big believer that comedy has an aftertaste, that you can laugh at something and then feel icky about it later on. You can laugh at something that you wouldn't necessarily find yourself laughing at. And I think in this society, we're debating a lot of things, but I think that you can find some edge and some darkness within, how we interpret what is appropriate to say or not to say. I know that sounds like a jumble of words, but I know we live in this day and age where the concept of censorship, which is so important to comedians, I think you can navigate around it. You know what I mean? You don't have to curse or make someone feel uncomfortable or left out. You can still challenge people.
And you lead right off with some of the darker stuff with the pandemic.
Yeah.
You don't start with bacon or other foods. The
Yeah.
pandemic is your opening conversation. What went into that decision to start that way?
Well, I mean, some of it is I've learned that you really have to grab people's attention, and it's like all good storytelling. You have to make people want to read through the next 3 minutes and 3 pages, or get them through the first act. And so some of it is I believe in pacing. I'm kind of I want, ideally I'd like to make people laugh, and then if it is like a punch, it's like right when they're when the oxygen has left, that's when I hit them again. It's not just a home run hit, it's the repetition of it. But and some of it is starting with the pandemic was intentional because it's part of our psyche, and I don't think we've even digested it. I think some of humor and comedy is we are digesting what we're living through. And being a parent of 5 kids, I mean, anyone who has children has, seen what the pandemic has done. And I don't think as a society we've even comprehended the impact of that. I'm somebody who lived through 9/11, and the pandemic I think had such a dramatic effect on Americans socially and culturally that we don't even really understand it yet. That sounds, I mean, maybe I'd be funnier during this interview, but no.
No, that's good. The special's so good all throughout, but I always like the sillier stuff too. Who else would do a section on bells?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Where did you come up with that?
Well, that's one of those self-assignments, is that there's stuff that's driven by point of view, right? Which is like, how do I feel about this experience that we all went through? How do I feel about loss, which we all went through loss? And I think that, and I'll get to the bell thing, I think that as human beings, we can't live in the grief of all this loss, and we kind of move on. And some of that I learned through my wife having a brain tumor and stuff like that. But the bells is very much a self-assignment of how can I had this observation. I was in Rochester, Minnesota, and someone offered to take me to their bell tower. And I was like, that's the least attractive thing. And then I was like, what if I could make bells funny? And some of it is, this kind of basic thing that has been part of humanity for thousands of years, right? And just they're in every town, and it's just an absurd kind of thing, and there's what's so fun about stand-up is sometimes you'll start with an idea and that will inspire a chunk, and that element won't even end up in the final product. So like I have a section on Starbucks, and that's a pretty universal topic, but my way into it was the fact that my teenagers really love Starbucks, and they have an affinity towards it that like maybe you and I had towards McDonald's when we were 10-year-olds, right? And just the cake pops and the sugar thing. And that never ended up in the thing, but it prompted my curiosity on Starbucks. And so whether it be Starbucks or bells, it was sometimes it's just something that kind of bumps you. Like any writer will tell you that just seems a little bit weird. Like bells are weird. And so it was inspired by that. But I do love the I mean, also I think that the silliness, you have to earn that. And I mean, that's some of where I'm so grateful for people that come to my shows, because when you do a theater or an arena show, everyone that's in there understands your point of view, or a great percentage, in the upper 90s know your sensibility. And so therefore it gives you a shorthand and an allowance to get creative and get silly, which I think, just as we've lived through some dark times, I think silliness is really an important thing. But if it was just silly, like we live in an age where something has to have substance. But if you're doing the music of a of a special, it can't be all rant or complaint. It has to have some silliness in there. I don't know music, but I know that like some of the, the jazz of it all has to make sense.
Well, I want to close out. I'm glad you brought up music. I'd love to ask people, just so I can get to know you a little bit better, favorite music artists over your lifetime. Who are some of your go-tos that even if your kids don't like them, you still want to listen to them in the car or elsewhere?
Oh gosh, I have always loved a singer songwriter, but particularly I love like Irish folk songs, and I love singer songwriters. And I have, my brother Joe also has this too, where we have the musical taste of a 14-year-old girl. So I love like Lana Del Rey, like Sarah McLachlan, back in the 90s. You know, I've always been drawn to like Billie Eilish. It's like stuff that, you know, um but I would say that it is the singer-songwriters, but I'm somebody that gets nervous when people ask me about my musical taste, because I feel like um I should try and be intellectual or artistic about it. But I think that what I love is, I search for authenticity, even in a silly pop song. I mean, I love Brandy Carlisle, I love but like formerly the Dixie Chicks, now the Chicks. It's like, I love that kind of stuff where there is some heart, there is some sincerity, but it's kind of it's authenticity at the root. I think that Billie Eilish is, I know that she's a young person, but like I think that she aspires for authenticity, which I think her and her brother do pretty magnificently.
None of that surprises me because you're a clever wordsmith, and everybody you just named is a clever wordsmith, just with music rather than in comedy.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's so fun because I had this joke, because like when, as a comedian, when you go to the Grammy Awards, I mean, comedians are just oddballs anyway, but there is something about, it's like, there's some people are born with really incredible musical gifts, and some people dress normally. You know what I mean? Like that's my take on the Grammy Awards, because I'll go there and I'll be like, look at what people are wearing. I'm just this normal guy from a small town in Indiana. So I feel like I'm always so thrilled to be invited to the ball. You know what I mean?
What about television? Were there particular shows you grew up watching that you may even still enjoy today?
I mean, I consumed so much television as a kid. Uh, and I would watch things and I didn't know what was good or bad. Like I remember after school watching reruns of the Dick Van Dyke Show and not knowing that it was a comedy, or I mean, I could sense that it was a comedy, but like as an 8-year old, the Dick Van Dyke Show, The Odd Couple, I just would, I would watch Welcome Back, Connor, but like I remember watching and black and white versions of it. But I'm, right now, TV wise, I'm very much, I definitely steer towards uh, dramas and usually limited series stuff.
Last question: two or three favorite movies that from growing up, maybe that are in your all-time top 10 kind of a list.
Well, It's a Wonderful Life is just, which I have pretty much most of the lines memorized because I've seen it so much. And movies I love. I mean, I loved Airplane. It's so exciting when my kids kind of um climb onto that. But like just movies that, but then there's movies that I just like, like Moonlight, where I'm just like, it's like, I have nothing in common with anyone in the movie, and it just tugs at me. Do you know what I mean? And then, but like I loved, God, now I can't think. It's the BJ Novak movie that I just watched that was about revenge.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm
from this
talking
past
about?
year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was like brilliant. That was like so good. So, but yeah, no, it's interesting because I think I've gained to appreciate and I loved, well, like a movie that I also loved was Force Majeure, which is like, I think that's like a masterpiece too. Is that I because I'm forced to consume these children's movies with my children, it makes me appreciate something like Moonlight or Force Majeure. You know what I mean? Or you know, Triangle of Sadness. It makes me, in the end, I love a really good quirky indie. That's my wheelhouse. And as an actor, it's like I love where I see that actors are given an opportunity to really kind of gobble up a character.
I love that you have Force Majeure and Airplane in your top 10. I don't know
Yeah.
that a lot of people have that combination.
Right. Well, I was also going to say The Apostle because I love that movie too. But
Oh, Robert Duvall.
yeah, I mean, Duvall, like, unbelievable,
He just
right?
eats up that role that year. That was one of the, I don't remember exactly who it was, but the single greatest best actor lineups ever. It was, I think that was the year Jack Nicholson won for As Good as It Gets.
Yeah. I mean, but by the way, how about Farrah Fawcett in that? And
Exactly.
I mean, you're just like, and it was just heartbreaking. And I think it really embodied this lack of judgment, which was just like an artistic take and kind of just humanity where we're just flaws. You know what I mean? And that's where it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to do that. So
Every movie, every show, every music artist you named is clever.
yeah.
You are attracted to clever.
Well, thanks. Thanks so much. Yeah, that's a compliment.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jim. This has been a real pleasure. I hope all the voters that we discussed, the Globe voters, Grammy voters, Writers Guild, and so forth, Emmy voters in 9 or 10 months will pay attention to your special, and hope you have a good rest of your year. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Good talking to you.